Welcome to Extend Your Tangle. I want to write this little video here just working on a normal Zendala or Zentangle tile. I'm just going to use a Pigma 01 pen, my favourite shading tool, and a tortillon. I don't mind what tile you want to tag along with to play, so whether you're using an original Zentangle tile, something bigger like a Zendala, your own artist tile, or a little bit of a fun tile. I've just got this really cute wee 8-pointed star here that I'm just going to have fun with. It's about the same size as drawing round a couple of Zentangle original tiles if you want to follow suit. And we're just going to have a little bit of fun here just on ways to extend a tangle. So once you've learned one particular tangle and you just want to have a little bit more fun with it, here's some prompts and ways to play with it. So first of all, I'm just going to actually run with drawing two little tangles on this. The first one is Arucas by TangleatioNZ, and we're going to have fun extending poke root. Just some little prompts. So because I want to use Arucas as the main vehicle for the tangle here, I just want to draw an orb in the middle of my tile. You can cheat, of course, and just draw around something that's circle. You can draw it freehand. A freehand orb in the middle is just perfectly fine, or there's a lovely little trick for drawing a wee circle where you just pop your finger in the middle of the tile, hold your pencil quite close, and just rotate the tile round. Just make sure your finger's in the middle. It may take you a couple of goes to just make sure you're quite happy, and then when you think you're happy with the orb that you're drawing, just drop the pencil down, keep rotating the tile round. Keep rotating, and you've got a lovely circle. So I'm just going to play with this one here in the middle of my tile. There's no point in giving me scale, as I'm not sure if you're working to the same one as me, but as a general rule, it's the width of the pen lid without the top here. So I'm now going to draw my Arucas in here. So this is as far as I've got with a string. That's all I'm going to need. And I'm now just going to use my pen to just go over that pencil line that I have popped down. Lovely technique of Zentangle, of rotating the tile or the drawing material that you're working on. Just makes it easier on yourself. So if you're following along to this, rather than just watching, hopefully it's enough of a time for you to be able to tangle at the same time. If you need to pause, then by all means do. Now I'm just going to work to the narrowest point from my circle to the edge of my tile here, and I'm just now going to draw a wee straight line that just goes just to one side of it. And if you are working on any type of normal tile which doesn't have opposites to it, then what I'm talking about is drawing some straight lineal hollowbar lines that basically go out to, if you were looking at a clock face, from 12 till 6, from 3 to 9. It doesn't matter if they're not totally even, however, that's absolutely fine. And I'm going to draw some more pathways going off here. This is going to give me about various different segments to work with so that we can do some different ways to extend a tangle. With Arucas, what I'm talking about doing next, and the next step of this, is once we've got our straight paths in, I'm going to go back round and I'm going to now aura that first stroke. So that orb in the middle, I'm now going to aura it. And again, use that lovely excuse to just rotate the tile around. If you're working in a sketchbook or a wee journal, it might take you a little bit longer. But don't worry, just go at the speed that you need to go at. Once we've gone all the way round, we're going to go back to the straight lines. So again, I'm going to aura either side of that first path that I did. And then I'm going to repeat that stroke again, either side of the first paths that we drew. I'm playing with my 01. If you're working on a different pen size, just use your favourite tangling pen. That's all you need. I'm not very good at straight lines, so this isn't always necessarily my favourite cup of tea in terms of a tangle, but it's a great vehicle for using for what I want to do today. And once I've gone all the way around with an aura around this, I think you've guessed it, I'm going to go back and aura the disc. Once I've come back to the start, I'm going to go back to auring my pathways. I'm going to finish on this last pathway though. You can carry on Arucas all the way around if you want to, fill up all these sections, but I actually want to leave some sections blank here so that I can have a little bit of fun with the tangles and the ways I want to play with it and show you today. Oh, I've gone back to the start. So we're taking poke root here. So how I might draw poke root, that's that lovely one where you have a beautiful stem that just pops out, a little curved hat that sits on top of it, and then you take your orb and you go round to the stem and back round again. So just encompassing the first stroke that you did. But instead of drawing it as you might normally would, instead I'm going to change the scale. So as I begin to head up into the area above, I'm just going to make those berries of poke root just a little bit bigger each time. I'll make the stem a little larger, I'll make my curved hat a little larger, and so as you're filling the space or the section that you're going to, I'm just going to get a little bit bigger each time. Just changing the scale. So sometimes you can have a lot of fun just extending a tangle by just changing the scale. Of course you can go from big to small as well. The next thing I want to do is to think about shapes. So if, however, we might want to just change it so it's a bit of a lineal tangle. So here I'm going to take a shape that I've got here. I'm going to do my stem, my little curved hat, and I'm going to go round. But this time I'm going to take the stroke of the stem and I'm going to extend it just as a line as it heads up into the space. Sometimes when people are turning a tangle into a lineal tangle, they might actually want to use the string line, as a bit of a guide as to where to take this lineal tangle. So suddenly we've changed the shape. Another way to change the shape is to do a blossom version. So I'll just go opposite here. So instead of going in a straight line, I'm going to produce my little curved stem and my little curved hat, and then I'm going to go round. But next one I'm going to come out from the same spot. So instead of it going in a real growth type pattern up the section, this time I'm going to start them all at the same spot and just rotate round and produce a blossom with poke root. I left that first one blank just so I can finish off so they all overlap each other. And of course you don't have to do a blossom as if it's working from just one main point. You can also choose to do a blossom just at the edge. So you can actually do it just going off and just do a little quarter blossom just coming out from the same direction. So you can do that at the bottom as well. So now we've changed two shapes. We also might want to choose to do a different scale. So this one I changed the scale from small to big. You can always go from big to small. Really easy way to change or extend a tangle is to really change the scale. So this time, instead of trying to fit everything into the section, I'm just going to draw that really big. in which case I might use the edge of my section to actually hide the full element. So when I've drawn it really big, I don't see all of the elements of poke root, but I just see a suggestion of it coming behind. And of course the very obvious way to extend a tangle is to use the enhancement techniques. So let's just draw your poke root as you normally would. Perhaps he's the same sort of scale as mine, perhaps you're a little bit bigger, maybe you're a little bit flatter. I'm not telling you different ways to draw your tangle differently. That sort of goes without saying. You're all going to draw it slightly differently to me. What I'm looking for is just a little list of techniques I'm going to give you, little prompts if you like, to help you extend your tangle. So this time just draw the tangle poke root as you normally would. No changes to scale, no changes to layout. Just draw it up through this section as you normally would. What I will do often with poke root is just include a little bit of drawing behind. So just where one just comes in and just overlaps another one. Once you've filled up your section of your little poke root, let's just illustrate a few of those enhancement techniques. So the first one obviously to think about is drama. That's one where we're just going to take the background areas behind my little tangle and just add a bit of black. Add a little bit of drama in here to really make the little poke roots stand out. Of course you don't need to stand it out in the whole area. You can, if you want, just add a little bit of rounding. So every time you've got a sharp angle on your tangles here, instead of filling the whole thing with drama, I might just add a little bit of rounding onto these angles. Of course we can always include a bit of sparkle. So if I just pop a little comma or a reflection inside my poke roots, suddenly they have a little bit of a glossy appearance. And of course the last one to include here is the lovely and all favourite aura. And you might even pop some sparkle inside your auras too. Just have a little pause or a couple of dots instead of a straight line, and you can add a bit of sparkle in your aura. I'll just do a few auras here just to finish up that final bit of space in the section. There we go. Enhancement techniques to extend a tangle. Another way to extend it on a shape one, and this I can only describe as give it legs. So here's what I mean is, as I'm drawing my normal poke root, but this time I'm going to extend the stem line. And so my little poke roots aren't that little anymore as I make it leggy. I always describe this as if you've almost overwatered your plant. Suddenly we've got a really leggy plant. This time a leggy poke root. You can either choose to keep going in the same manner, where your stem lines are coming out behind another poke root top or berry part, and do employ a little drawing behind as well with this one. You've got these holly bough stems here, you've got these legs coming along. So make use of it by including a little bit of drawing behind as you produce these lovely leggy poke roots. You can have great fun with some holly bough stems here. Just putting a little bit of a curve on if you like, changing that elemental stroke from a straight line or a curved line to a double curve, and include a little bit of drawing behind as you go with this one. I'm not going to have a lot of space for this one. Oops, just in. So there we go. We've just made a really leggy poke root, and we've had a little bit of fun including some drawing behind. So I've only got 2 sections left here, so I just want to, I was going to say, let's see what we can squeeze into this one. So this is a lovely wee way, is just think creatively about extending a tangle, about actually doing a little bit of a mix and match. Just think of this as a bit of a muesli. So instead of just having a little poke root as it heads up, my little poke berries here just curving out into the space, but you could also add in the odd poke leaf. And mixing and matching a tangle with another one can be a really lovely way of extending the tangle. These two obviously are cousins, they're definitely related, sometimes perhaps caused by a bit of a pen oops. But you can also take another little tangle, wee rixty here, and you can throw the odd rixty into this little ensemble as well. It's another one that's got a similar element to it in terms of the way it's built. So just think of them as cousins dancing up the section. I think we might just have to finish with a little poke leaf at the point there. So doing a bit of a mix and match can be a lovely way too. And then the last way to do it that I've got 1 space left here is just change the elemental stroke. So what I mean by this, instead of your curved stem and your curved hat, draw a straight line. And suddenly, just taking the tangle and changing the elemental stroke that we've got. I'm still putting some rounded corners on mine, but that's about as round as I go. They're definitely corners. And so just changing the elemental stroke when you're drawing a tangle can be a really fun way of exploring this. I'm slowly going to build them up. Sometimes when you're doing this it can be quite hard to change the stroke that you're doing. You're so used to drawing it in a certain way. That you almost want to keep going with the curve because that's what you do. But it's a really easy way of just changing and extending a tangle without having to learn a new one. Although that's always fun too. I'm just going to go off and practice a little bit of drawing behind there. So we've just changed the elemental stroke. Just while I'm on the elemental stroke, just changing it, here's a fun little pair that I quite like to point out. Here's henna drum with curves. Here's henna drum gone straight. Here's Arucas straight. Here's Arucas with curves, or I've changed the starting point. I've changed from a really organic flux to a very spiky flux, and I've gone from a very organised and geometric jonquil to a really curvy version. And you can see here how you can have a lot of fun just changing an elemental stroke on a tangle. Just a few more ideas here. Well, I've kind of sort of filled as much as I can fill here with the pen, so I'm going to pop some shading in. I'm going to start with I tend to use a 2B pencil for my shading. So first of all, I just want to put in the background. So the full outside edge here, I'm just going to put a little bit of graphite on the outside of the last path of Arucas. So I'm just going to pop my pencil down just on the outside of that last line. I'm going to do it to all of these here. Throw it down and rotate the tile as I go, as I slowly move around and get all of the sections. This ensures that my Arucas is going to sit on top as I drew it first to the rest of the tangling. Might just pop a little bit in, just joining the two at the dark patch there. Just because I've done the same tangle lots of different times, I'm just going to stick to a similar shading technique. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of a shadow in underneath the stems, as if there's a little shadow as it would go. I'll pop a little bit of graphite, just almost as a little ball underneath the stem, so I can then use my tortillon to blend it in. Take your time with this. There's nothing worse than just rushing your shading at the end. You don't need to, but I am just having a little bit of fun, just popping a little bit of graphite down just at one spot. Of course, where perhaps I've gone a bit leggy or lineal here, I'm just going to do more of the stem, and where I've gone really leggy, I'm definitely going to extend my graphite down the length of the legs here. I'll go slightly lighter as I throw my graphite in. And here I'm going to take where I've got my rounding, so I'm just going to pop a little bit in the background as well as my underneath my poke roots. And you can have a little bit of fun with the shading, just choosing one or a line and popping in some graphite there. Once I've got a little bit of graphite down everywhere, the only one that I might make a change, of course I can add sparkle with the pencil as well, is just on this one where I've drawn it big scale, I actually just throw a little bit of extra graphite inside these big poke roots, because it's a big area to fill, so actually I can afford to put a little bit of shading inside. I put it very lightly down, and then I can use my tortillon to start smudging. I'll now do the same with all of my graphite, just rotating round, popping the graphite into the spaces beside where you popped it down. And pop this shading in here. As I say, I'm just sort of going for the similar sort of ways of shading, just to show you how even if you're shading the tangle in the same way, just depending on how you drew it, can make a real big difference. However, I just want to put a little bit of graphite in there, and even though I'm filling a whole space here, I still want to use my tortillon to really smush and smooth the graphite into the texture of the paper. Oh, I'm back where I started, so now I might just put in the graphite that I put in at the start. I'm really going to smudge that out into the space. So I'm smudging straight over my tangling with the graphite, but that's all good. You can just make sure they really look as if they're in the background of my Arucas. Rotate around the tile. If I'm doing a big shading like this where I'm really trying to make something into the background, I'll often put the graphite down first and really smush it into the texture of the paper, and then I will often go back with my pencil, just because I've pulled a lot of the graphite out into the space just to give you that depth, but I'll then just go back with my 2B and just really put in a very strong line right where I took the graphite from. It's amazing what a difference that makes, just pulling a bit of stronger graphite just in where you smudged it out. When you're doing this though, make sure your pencil is very sharp, or I suggest using a mechanical pencil is a lovely way of ensuring that you've just got a really fine line just where you're on the very edge of your tangling pen lines. Then I want to just make sure I've smushed the graphite just at the center there, just around. And I just want to do a little bit of shading around my Arucas, so I tend to just pop a little bit of graphite just at the joins here and just take it down the lengths of the pathways that we drew. Again, I'll rotate the tile so I can make it the same repetitive stroke as I'm going around. The repetitive stroke is a really useful way of knowing what's coming next, taking away that decision making, really being able to focus on your tangling. I'll just be very gentle with my tortillon as I just give it a gentle blend in, just to soften up those lines. There's a lot of repetitive here, but that's half the fun, to make it a very smooth and relaxing drawing technique. So make use of it as you go. And then finally, just want to pop a little bit of graphite just around this center string, our original string line. I'll just very gently pop a little bit of graphite around here just to lift this up. And again, just smoosh very gently round. And do the same on my next layer out as well. Always important, just keep a little bit of light, a little bit of white there, as you don't cover everything grey as you go round. You may find you hardly need to use your tortillon in very thin areas, just enough to just show a gentle graduation. Then the last thing that you need to do, once you've filled all of your sections, is just add your mark. So I think I've got two little spaces here. I might just throw mine into this corner here. So there we go, ways to extend a tangle. I've just shown you some ideas for changing the shape. So blossom the tangle, make it lineal, give it legs, maybe using those enhancement techniques, a little bit of drama, a little bit of rounding, a little bit of sparkle, and a little bit of aura. Perhaps change the scale, so draw it really big. Don't include all the element in there, just miss bits out. It'll still look fine. Or change the scale, going from small up to big, or big up to small. Perhaps you want to think about mixing two together. So here I've mixed in poke root with poke leaf and a little bit of rixty. And here I changed the elemental stroke. So instead of having my curved line, I've gone for straight lines. Little just ways to extend a tangle and have some fun with it. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Happy tangling.